that after we had spent several years there, and regularly we met Karmapa and we practiced at Sunata, and he instructed us on what we should do next and what we should do. And then one day he called us, and suddenly he told us, like for us out of the blue, he told us,
you go home
now you should go home. And for us it was really like we had completely focused on just being close to him. It was not in our thought, where is home and should we ever go back again, yeah? So he completely shocked us out of that and told us, now you should go home. And
so that was like 74.
That was in 72. And that it was time to go home, and that there would be people there who were kind of ready for getting contact with Buddhism. And he completely prepared us for that. He gave us then a beautiful thangka with loving eyes in the middle, and the two
wisdom Buddha.
Manjushri, wisdom Buddha, and Chanadodya, like in the to the other side. And so that's what you will need. You will need compassion. You will need wisdom. You will need strength. And he gave us a letter for the Queen of Denmark, and gave us a name for the first center. He said this would be the mother center in Copenhagen.
Places where you accomplish things by following the
like the first center with him, actually in Europe. And he gave us a name and everything, and he sent us off like that. So that became really the beginning of all his activity in Europe.
So we met all our old friends, right? Tough friends. And they were quite amazed. They thought we had changed a lot. They really thought. They thought it was interesting, and they gradually started. Then we stayed about 5 months, had 2 jobs. Remember, Hannah? We had 2 jobs. We had teaching during the daytime in the school and cleaning another school during the night. So we got money together very quickly. We had at least 16 hours of work. And then we went on from there and teaching also our friends and starting with them. And then when we had enough money, we went out at New Year 72. We went out then to meet what is his name? Ayang Rinpoche, because Karmapa had said
he told us we should get the Powa teaching from Ayang Rinpoche.
Conscious dying, like
Ayang Rinpoche. He's a Drikung Lama, and he lived down in Bailakuba in the Tibetan refugee camps. And he was at that time like the main holder of the Powa transmission. And Karmapa told us we should get it from him. So that's how we came out again and got that instruction. And then also the Karmapa told us that we should help, that he wanted to send Kalu Rinpoche to Europe, like in head of him. He was going to come himself, but he would send Kalu Rinpoche first. And then he asked us to
take care,
to prepare everything to make that possible.
Okay.
In that period, say between 70 and 72, when you're related to the various Kagyu lamas in eastern India, what kinds of did you have much occasion to relate to Frida Beate? She would have been
Sister Pamo.
Sister Pamo, yeah, we met her several times. We met her quite a lot.
She lived in Rumtek.
She lived up next to Karmapa. She had her own dimension. She was she was a close friend of Indira Gandhi. So she got all the money for Rumtek out of Indira Gandhi, right? Out of the Indians. And so Karmapa really honored her and had her living. He lived when you look up in the right tower, she lived in the left tower there on the top but
she helped with translations.
And so she just didn't know much Tibetan. She just hardly knew any Tibetan, so it was always. She also came along on the tours.
On the first tour, she came along.
She came along, but there was a reason that Karmapa didn't give many teachings. When she came, he always started giving blessings because her Tibetan was not very good, and she often translated things that sounded very Christian, right? Because that was her background.
But she was a wonderful woman.
She was a great woman.
And she did a lot of written translations. And actually Thangka Rinpoche helped her a lot with these translations.
But the language was often very Christian-like, and Karmapa could see the Europeans cringe when she started, right? So he always did something else. And
she visited us also.
Yeah, she was with us.
When we were building up the center.
She came to Copenhagen. We were on the top of a house
when we were still
in the poorest part of Copenhagen. Because we wouldn't
building up phase.
And she walked over drunk people lying across the stairways, to get up to us. This is a rough part of Copenhagen. They were always fighting. There was always bang, always trouble. Christiania was right on the other side, the hippie colony, where they took over an old army camp, and they're still there today. The Danes can't really throw them out because they have the bombs all over town. Now they have them in one place. It's easier, right? So that was. Today the hippies are not the problem anymore. Now it's the Muslims, right? But they stay together by themselves, right?
Yeah.
So that's.
But then we were building up, and there was a big interest. Like lots of people came.
Because people had just discovered. So many of our friends died from drugs. Many of our friends. They really died one after the other. Mainly between Istanbul and Kathmandu. What? Yeah, everything. Not just not taking care of themselves, spacing out too much, not
the people who didn't stop,
if they were sick. The smart ones stopped, right?
Yeah.
They looked at it and said, it's.
They just wasted their lives.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
They lost it. We had dozens of. Maybe in late 60s, early 70s, there was a group of 50 really bright people today. People who were so artistically bright, so capable, so good. They were living out at Christianshavn like we were in the old house, 400-year-old houses there and so on in that area. And we did everything, tried everything together. And they were so amazing that they made music and they made poetry that is so good that young people today, 20-year-old people today, are now coming from the universities of Copenhagen and questioning us about Eichel and Stig and and all these other people and so on. That was how advanced they were. That was how far away.
But they didn't stop the drugs. So.
They didn't stop, so they all died. But they were amazing. They flamed quickly. So anyway, everybody was sure that drugs were not the solution, right? Yes. Our generation found that out, and then they couldn't just go back to stacking money, right? Because it wasn't meaningful enough. And then they had to, then meditation came in and Buddhism, and we took several out to meet Karmapa, and many of them also met him in Denmark and so on, and other places.
Yeah, because then at that time it was still, the society was quite different. So it was like either you were very straight or you were not. And it has changed so much now, yeah? So just in the beginning it was like that. So of course, we started there, people came to us and a lot of interest and they were meditating.
And there was
and then we had Kalu Rinpoche first.
Exhibition called The Inner Universe.
Yes.
There was also a big exhibition when we came back. There was already in 71 when we came back, big one, with a Danish professor, 72, right, with a big professor called Kjell Selin. And that was an amazing thing. Thousands of people came, and all the Hindus were all over the place, and there was just, and they were discussing about everything. But there was one room; it was like nobody had been able to see it. But right at the end, and Hannah and I went straight in. We hung up our Tibetan scrolls. We put some mattresses on the floor and sat there. And all the people who had been comparing Maharishi, Maharaji, Guru Satchidananda, and everybody else, right, checking it all out, they would then come and sit down with us and say, what was all that, right? Because they were already talking about brain waves and, how you could be less stressed and selling in that way, right? And we were still doing the religious thing, that is good for your mind and how your mind is and stuff like that. Not so, and they came in there, and that first group, our first people came actually. Yeah,
so that was also how, the Karma Kagyu actually became the main Tibetan Buddhist school there. There was nothing else. It was the first, and it was still nobody knew about anything. They even didn't know who's Buddha. Yeah. So it was like really starting from that point.
Between Oslo and Athens, we were the first the whole way down.
Yes.
Whole way through. whole way through.
And through the Karmapa, you know, like his blessing, you can say.
And it was very magic. Everywhere we went, things just jumped up like, what do they call them? Mushrooms, right?
Yes.
Everything just came up like that very, very quickly. Small groups first, and then all the different. And we probably made most of our mistakes in Scandinavia, which was quite nice. It was
that's where we started,
forum, right? And then gradually we learned, and then things grew.
In the beginning, we were probably too fanatic, and like
a bit too stiff.
And then slowly one learns to adjust also to
speak in such a way that people can understand it without thinking one is moralizing or something like that.
Yeah, you might in the beginning you're too saved actually. Yeah, you found a way, and then you think everybody else will find the same way.
And then afterwards you get some distance and you can share and stuff like that. It doesn't change anything inside, right? But your presentation changes.
One becomes more mature, over the time. So Kalu Rinpoche was the first who came because Karmapa told him to do that, and we organized everything. And when he came, we had already, actually there were hundreds of people there who already had wanted to practice, had started practice.
He gave Bodhisattva promise. He gave everything. And he did something really amazing. He did something. He showed a pure and honest miracle. There was his throne was this height, and he came in walking like this. He put one leg up, and totally against every law of gravity, without leaving forwards, he stood up on this leg and moved. And came in like that instead of falling backwards. He moved up with his leg, at least with his point of gravity, at least half a meter behind his point of support. And there was no swing, no motion, because you can do it if there's motion, right? There was no motion. He came in, stood for a moment, put his foot up there, completely straightened up, and he was there. And it was, that, and he didn't support himself against anything. We all just said, wow. We all just, how did he do that? Really? Can you imagine you come in like this, put up your foot, and then without any kind of push, you just stand right up and move in like that. You have your whole gravity so far behind this, and you come in anyway. He just did that. I was very impressed, I must say.
Yeah.
And
well, he was also
that was a basement in Copenhagen, center of Copenhagen we had at that time.
Accomplished.
An
important teacher for us.
Yeah. Every time the Sherpas up in Sonada, they had been drunk and noisy, he gave them rainy weather. So they had to come out there and do all that's every time. He was a good yogi.
Yeah.